There isn't anyone you can't come to love once you know their story. But for the first 40 years of my life, I didn't feel love. I lived in fear. I was wearing a mask. And I felt like an imposter. One of the hardest places for me to share my story was in the workplace. I was filled with fear that to share my story of being a transgender person, that I would lose value in the work that I do, that I might lose my job in the company that I worked for, and I might lose my career and not be able to find another job. I didn't know what was going to come next. You see, it takes an incredible amount of vulnerability to live as a transgender person. Because to be transgender, you not only have to come out and share your story, but you also have to come in to the office. And both are equally vulnerable. And as I embarked on coming out to the people that I work with, my managers, and my customers, it wasn't lost on me that it wasn't just a vulnerable experience for me, but it was also a vulnerable experience for them. And so the way I chose to deal with this was in a very personal way. And I sat down one-on-one with all of my coworkers and my customers and my managers, and I shared my story. I did this very purposefully because I wanted to give people, one, a safe environment to react to what they were hearing. You see, only roughly 16% of the population even knows someone that's transgender. Something much smaller has known somebody that went from this gender to this gender. I also wanted to give them a safe environment to ask awkward questions that weren't in front of others that might embarrass them. And I wanted to give them permission. I wanted to give them permission to make mistakes. I wanted them to know that our working relationship was far more valuable than you getting my name right or the pronouns right. And I wanted them to know we're going to make mistakes and it's going to be okay. And one of the hardest places for me to come out was to my manager, because I didn't know what was going to happen next. And so I met Ben. We met over in a restaurant in San Mateo, just down the road from here. And I told him my story, and I shared with him my plans. And Ben, at the end of the dinner, looked at me and he said, I want to share with you my story. And he said, where I grew up and in my family was very judgmental of people that were not like us. And he said, I want you to know that I support you and that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you have the support you need, because I don't want to make the same mistakes my family did. And then I met with my friend Anna, who was also a coworker. We were in a sales team together selling into a major customer here in the Bay Area. And Anna and I knew each other. We connected at a religious level, at our faith level. We were both very active in our churches, and so we talked a lot about that. This is a very challenging subject for the church, as most of us know. I didn't know how Anna was going to respond. And so I told my story, and I shared my story with Anna, nervously thinking that this might be the last time that we worked together, and that things might now become awkward in the workplace. And Anna looked at me. She literally looked at me and said, Kate, I just have one question for you. How is your relationship with God? And I was like, that's your question? We then had an hour-long conversation about faith in the church. We had an hour-long conversation about how her struggles, as she told me her story in her church, and how she wanted her church to be more open to the LGBTQ plus community. And I was blown away. And then the day came that it was time to come in to the office. And I approached that door with incredible nervousness and anxiety and fear. And it was incredibly vulnerable to turn that doorknob and to walk into that door for the very first time. But it wasn't lost on me that it was also vulnerable for everyone on the other side of that door, knowing I was coming into the office that day and not knowing how they would react to me. What would that be like for them? I walked into the office, and to my surprise, my allies immediately stopped what they were doing, came over and greeted me. And they modeled for everyone else in the office. Kate is here, she belongs here, and she's valued here. There was others that weren't sure how to react yet. So I walked right up to them myself, and I owned that vulnerable moment. And I said, "Hi, my name is Kate." And for many of them, they met somebody new that just came into the office for the first time. "Hi, Kate. Nice to have you come at Oracle. We've been working together for like 5 years." But it broke the ice. And what happened was, it was like, "Kate, glad you're here. Come on, we got a project to go work on. Let's get back to work." Fast forward about a year later. I asked my boss, Ben. I said, "Ben, how are things going? You know, are people saying things that I don't hear? What's going on? Is anybody really nervous about working with me? I'm not noticing anything that different." And he said, "Kate," he said, "No, nobody's saying anything. Everybody loves working with you." He said, "I've only noticed one thing different." And of course I hung on that one thing. I'm like, what is that one thing? And he said, "Kate, you're far more engaged in your work." What? You see, a year later, I felt more valued in what I was doing in the workplace because of who I am than I did for years before that. I shared my story with you, and I share what is my story with you, not about being the perfect way of dealing with a gender transition, because my story is about finding value in each other when we embrace vulnerability in the way that we share our story with each other. Because as I embraced that vulnerability, others and did too, and shared their story with me, we became closer. We were able to hold each other more accountable. We trusted each other in our work more. So today I want to challenge you to take a journey with me. Embrace vulnerability. Take off your mask. Share your story. And together, we will find love. Thank you.